everyone.
Good morning and Happy New Year. I'm Vice Mayor Smith, the Chair of the Boards and Commissions Committee. I would like to welcome you all to the January 11th remote meeting. All council members are participating virtually. To help us move along, I'll call each section aloud. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For those of you out there today, welcome. Today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the same number, 855-925-2801, meeting code 9478. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers will need to press *3 to enter the speaker queue. At this point, I'll call everybody's name who is participating virtually, council members and staff. Make sure to unmute your phone, your microphone when you're speaking, and mute it back after speaking. Council and staff, I'll call your name. Please say a quick hello. Councilwoman Antoinette Mosley.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Kim Roney.
Hello.
We have Interim Assistant City Manager Peggy Rowe.
Hello, everyone.
Deputy City Clerk Sarah Gross.
Good morning.
Assistant Clerk Jerry Goldberg.
Good morning.
All right, I'll start the committee agenda with the approval of November 9th minutes. Are there any questions about the minutes, or is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
All right, second.
Second.
All right, the motion in a second. I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
And myself, aye. The minutes have been approved. Is there anybody in the speaker queue? Now is the time for public comment.
We do not have anyone on the line.
All right, we'll move right on to our January board appointments. We had a number of appointments, and a few of them we have chair recommendations or staff recommendations. So I'll just start from the top with Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. There is one vacancy. The chair recommends appointment of Matthew Bartholomew. Is there a motion or discussion?
This is Kim, so moved. I'll second.
All right, with a motion and a second, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Motion carries for the appointment, the recommended appointment of David Bartholomew. For Board of Adjustment, we have one vacancy. There was no recommendation made for that. Is there a recommendation from the committee?
I was looking forward to hearing what my colleagues had to say about these. Of course, I'm thankful for everyone who participates in our boards and commissions and is willing to serve. I think we have good applicants across the board.
Okay. I'm sorry, I have so many papers here. I thought I was on mute. I'm shuffling through. Well, I'll make a motion to appoint or recommend the appointment of Michael Luciano.
This is Kim, second.
All right, with the motion and second, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
And myself, aye. The motion carries. For the Civic Center Commission, there's one vacancy, and I believe there's a recommendation for the appointment of John Pierce.
So moved.
All right, is there a second?
This is Kim, so moved.
All right, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
And myself, motion carries. Downtown Commission, we have three vacancies. There was a recommendation to appoint Tal Frankfurt, Claire Greer, and Ricardo Sejo. Any discussion on those three?
Well, okay, so I thought, okay,
I thought it was the recommendation to appoint the two that were already on and one of the three that you mentioned. Is that not the case? So there are two members who are currently on and eligible for reappointment. Those are Robin Rains and Guillermo Rodriguez. Is that correct, Jerry?
Yes, council member, that is correct. The recommendation was to reappoint Robin Rains and Guillermo Rodriguez, and then consideration of one of those three for appointment.
So this was my question when I was reviewing the documents for this meeting. I know in the past, I've seen full committees discuss and sometimes even interview candidates before the group makes a group recommendation. My understanding is recently we've been leaning on the chairs to make these recommendations. Do we have a formal recommendation from the Downtown Commission?
We do have a formal recommendation from the Downtown Commission. I'll read that to you all. Let me get to it. They went through each applicant and gave a priority for each, either low priority or high priority for each of those. They said that they were currently thinking that Mr. Frankfurt and Ms. Greer are likely recommendations. They gave more of a soft recommendation. And then also the vice chair, she chimed in and agreed with the recommendation or the suggestion from the commission chair, Barry Moffitt. An exception, she wanted to also add Mr. Seho. She said that his experience in working with both the National Park Service and the historic areas could be beneficial to the commission. He also represents another culture. So they went through with each application and gave their recommendations, and that's how they came out. The top recommendations being for Frankfurt, Greer, and Seho.
For one of the three seats. You see what I'm saying, Vice Mayor?
Yeah.
Okay. And before we move forward, I just want to point out there is 2 open vacant seats.
Yes.
Okay, 2 open.
Three, but 2 who are currently on the commission.
And up for reappointment.
And so appointment potentially of one new person should we decide that those who are currently on the commission and are still eligible are reappointed. Is that the correct?
That's how I was reading it too.
That is correct. I'm checking the board roster right now. That is correct.
So with that clarity, and the reason I was asking about formal commission instead of just 1 or 2 members of a commission, which I appreciate all input that we can get, is a lot of times our boards and commissions are going through their retreat process. They're looking at the council strategic goals and then the comprehensive plan and then their personal or group missions. And so if there's an opportunity to look at like gaps in skill and experience. So I'm prepared to move that we reappoint Guillermo Rodriguez and Robin Rains and to recommend to council the appointment of Ricardo Sejo.
Motion on the floor, is there a second? You look in thought.
You are on mute, Councilmember Mosley.
I am in thought because I am in agreement with the reappointment, but it seems that there was a strong recommendation for Tal.
I wouldn't say a strong recommendation. I think they didn't put them in, they didn't put priority on them. They just suggested that the 3 were favorable.
Okay, well then there's a second.
Jerry, did you want to add anything?
Yes, Vice Mayor. My apologies. There are 2 reappointments and there are 2 vacancies in addition, because both Francie Sharon and Dane Barriger are not eligible for reappointment. So that creates 2 vacancies. And then Robin Rains and Guillermo Rodriguez are both eligible for reappointment. So those would fill 2 seats if you choose to reappoint them or recommend reappointment. So there are.
So that would
two-
mean that our original document that says that there are 3 vacancies on this commission is inaccurate. It wasn't
incorrect.
updated. Okay.
It was 4. My
Then I would
apologies.
amend my motion to include both Ricardo, Sejo, and Tao. Apologies for not having that person's Frankfurt.
Okay, so does that mean there are 4 seats?
That's what Jerry
Correct.
just confirmed.
I'll second Councilwoman Roney's motion to
Okay.
include Tal and Richard.
I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney,
Aye.
and myself, aye. And that is to recommend the appointment of Robin Rains, Mr. Rodriguez, Tal Frankfurt, and Ricardo Sejo. Those 4 recommendations, correct? All right.
Yes, please accept my apologies.
All right. Thank you for that clarity because I overlooked it. For the Homelessness Initiative Advisory Committee, we're going to postpone consideration until we learn more about the committee restructuring. And we should hear some of that later on. We have Nikki Reed on the line and Barry to give us information on that. Human Relations Commission, the staff liaison, Brenda Mills, recommends Michael Brown. Any comments on that?
I know one of the reasons for recommending Michael Brown was geographic location. We do have 2 other South Asheville representatives on the HRCA at this time. So my suggestion as the liaison is to seek a recommendation from the HRCA at their next meeting. They did just have a retreat. So once again, my intention is that they look at their retreat goals and see if they have gaps in experience that they need to bring to the table.
Jerry and Sarah, did we reach out to the chair for a recommendation on this appointment?
We did not get a recommendation back.
Okay. So what are you suggesting? You're the council liaison for that group.
So once again, because we don't have a formal recommendation from the commission that just got out of their retreat last month, my recommendation is to wait until next month to re-advertise this, simply to make enough time for the Human Relations Commission to make a recommendation based on their retreat and which gaps of experience they have at the table.
Okay, we'll honor that because I know before they made a recommendation not to appoint anyone until the Office of Equity and Inclusion was fully staffed. Then I believe we wanted to wait on their retreat to see what issues they can iron out within the retreat so that they can make recommendations moving forward and be fully loaded. I want to say fully staffed. I guess you can say fully staffed. So we'll postpone this one in order to get a formal recommendation from the chair or the committee. We're going to move
To
on.
confirm, sorry to interrupt. To confirm, this is postponed and we do want to reopen it to accept more applications, or do you want us to not re-advertise to only look at the applications received?
Re-advertise.
Re-advertise.
Yeah, I'm seeking consistency and just if we can get these appointments on the agendas for boards and commissions as they have vacancies, so that they have an opportunity to review those gaps.
Okay, Metropolitan Sewage District, we have 1 vacancy. I recommend the appointment of Derek Weekly.
Second.
All right, with a motion and a second, roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney,
Aye, with gratitude expressed for Chris Pelly's years of service.
Jerry,
Please confirm who seconded that. I apologize. Was that
Councilwoman
Antoinette?
Mosley.
I did.
Thank you.
All right, and myself, aye. So the motion carries. The Riverfront Redevelopment, they have 1 vacancy. And again, here, they, the chair and the committee didn't give a definite recommendation. They had a few qualifying applicants. They did kind of nod towards Kate and Kaya, but they left it to the committee to have discussion and make a final decision.
For me, in reviewing these applications and looking at what we have coming up in the riverfront area, the applications that stood out to me around having an eye on environmental impact were Chris Van Danish and Ben Williamson.
Okay, I don't remember seeing that application for Ben Williamson. Just give me a quick minute.
It's in the folder. It's the alphabetically, it's the last one in the folder.
So you suggested 2 people, but there is only 1 vacancy. So if
Right. Well, it's just that the 2 that when I was looking at the environmental impact of riverfront redevelopment, it's those are the 2 that stood out to me, which are different than the loose recommendations that we currently have. I'm offering that to the table to see if anyone else had a recommendation before making a motion.
Well, I was leaning towards the recommendation that they made with Kate and Kaya because she has a lot of experience with the Riverfront Design Committee. So I was leaning towards her based on her experience. And I think she was selected to sit as an ad hoc member on this committee. So based on her experience, I was leaning towards her. And I'll make a motion to appoint Kate and Kaya. I think you're on mute.
Every time. I will second.
All right, with the motion in a second, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
Myself, aye. The motion carries. Sustainability Advisory Committee on Energy and Environmentals. They have 3 vacancies. And here we do have pretty strong recommendations from that committee. They also really like Kate and Kaya, but knowing that she could be seated on the Riverfront Development Committee, they did make an alternative vote for Cara Fiano, Cara Fiano, Anna Priest, and Chris Pelrine. Those are their 3 recommendations.
My recommendation would be that we reappoint Chris and Anna. And then for the open vacancy, I move to recommend appointment of Michael Toten.
All right, that's a motion. Is there a second? All right, I'll make a second for that. We'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
No.
Okay. I wanted to give everybody time. I mean, I see you in thought.
Well, I just happened to have been, because I felt that this recommendation was amongst the strongest recommendations we received. And since they recommended Cara Fiano, I had been inclined to go with Anna Priest, Chris Pelrine, and Cara Fiano. So my note is because I wanted Cara included based on the strong recommendation for her.
Okay, we already have a motion on the table, but I am very
So I said no.
Yeah. So I'll just go on with, but I'm very interested in why Councilwoman Roney was in favor of Michael Totem.
So Michael is new to Asheville, but brings an incredible depth of knowledge around environmental policy creation, advocacy, has written numerous study papers. I did go down the rabbit hole of reading a number of them. And so recognizing that he's new in town, I think that he's also providing us an opportunity to resource his experience. And so it's an opportunity to gain what he's already done at an international and national level. And so I hope that if he wasn't appointed, that he would continue to participate, but I think we need his experience.
Okay, there's a motion on the table, second, and I believe I went through the vote with Antoinette, nay, and Councilwoman Maroney.
Aye.
And myself, aye. The motion carries. Urban forestry. There was a recommendation for Zoe Hoyle. Any feedback?
This is Kim. What's that?
2 vacancies, correct?
That was my understanding as well. I'm reading it as 2. So I first I wanted to acknowledge Steve as the liaison to the Urban Forestry Commission. Steve has offered a lifetime of work and years of service to advocating for a tree canopy and urban forest in Asheville. I do recommend the appointment of our chair. Amy is eligible and willing and is doing a fantastic job. So with recommendation for appointment, I would also note that Karen McNeil has been showing up to these meetings already, both in person before the pandemic and virtually. So hearing the recommendation of the Urban Forestry Commission, I want to hear what my colleagues have to say about the appointment of the vacancy.
Jerry, did you want to chime in real quick before we made our comments?
Just wanted to confirm Amy Smith. So there are 2 vacancies. Amy Smith is eligible and interested, and then Stephen Hendricks is not eligible.
Okay.
Is Zoe Hoyle the recommendation as well?
Zoe Hoyle is the recommendation. And I was leaning towards Zoe Hoyle because of their work with the U.S. Forest Service and doing extensive research. I think they're able and willing to bring something to the table that diversifies the thought there. I read through the application and I was thrilled with their background on research. And I think that's kind of what's needed right now.
So I make a motion to reappoint Amy Smith to the Urban Forestry Commission and to recommend, I have their name pulled up here, Zoe Hoyle for the vacancy.
All right, I'll say, okay. Second, okay. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Okay, Councilwoman Maroney.
Aye.
And myself, the motion carries. And I believe that's all we have there. Am I missing anything, you all? Okay, so that's it for appointments, board appointments. For this month, we move on to new business. We have a proposal to restructure the Homelessness Initiative Advisory Commission for regulatory compliance and to expand public input. We have Nikki Reed and Brian Husky here to present that proposal.
Good morning. I'm glad to be here, and Brian is going to take the lead on the presentation. So go ahead, Brian.
Get to it here. It's a little slow in loading here, sorry. Okay, can everyone see now?
Yes.
Yes.
We're good.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to bring this before you this morning. And I also want to express my gratitude to all 3 of you and the rest of the members of council for your thoughtful and diligent attention to the issue of homelessness. It's become a very front and center issue here in the last several months, and certainly lots going on. And I think making some good progress towards the solutions that we need to make. I'm a huge fan of author Stephen Covey's principle of begin with the end in mind. So in the interest of saving a little bit of time and leaving plenty of opportunity for questions and answers from the 3 of you and from the public, I want to say up front what the objective is here is to really put the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee in the formalized role as being our HUD continuum of care governance structure. But we also want to create a broader alliance within the community, sort of a general membership. So I want to clarify 3 things about the term continuum of care that I think confuse everybody. There is the continuum of care pot of funding that we receive annually from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. It's the only federal dedicated source of funding that we have to address homelessness, and it's a very important piece of what we do. There's also obviously the continuum of care expressed in the array of services that are available to our neighbors in the community who are experiencing homelessness. But the element that we've sort of had missing has been sort of a broader continuum of care that exists. It's a body of stakeholders and interested parties within the community that comprise sort of a general membership and provide the opportunity to get more diverse and just a wider swath of community input in a more formalized way. So I want to give you sort of just a very brief history here to get you to where we are now. So in 2007 was when the city of Asheville took over as the HUD Continuum of Care lead agency and collaborative applicant. And that means that the city has a responsibility for compliance with all the regulations around that particular pot of funding and to ensure that all the activities that have to occur annually actually take place. In 2008 was when the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee was actually created by council resolution. And then in the following year, the U.S. Congress passed the Homeless Emergency Assistance and Rapid Transition to Housing, better known as the HARTH Act, which provided a lot of changes within the original McKinney-Vento legislation that created continuum of care funding. And among many recommendations that and pieces of that legislation was a requirement for communities to create local governance bodies to oversee and set goals and objectives and expectations and review processes for use of that funding on a local level. So they codified all those community processes. And then there was about 4 years of subsequent regulation in the Code of Federal Regulations in subparts B 576 and 578 that really detailed those responsibilities, structure, purpose, operation, and the avoidance of conflicts of interest. Because the city had already assumed the continuum of care lead agency and collaborative applicant role, and HIAC was a council created by resolution of city council, it sort of became the local governance body by default, even though there wasn't really anything in its original charter or any of the amended bylaws that formally designates it to serve in this particular role. And so what's happened here is that the HIAC structure, the appointment process, its composition, really just haven't kept up pace with almost 14 years of regulatory changes that occurred since it was created back in 2008. Some of the issues that we have here is that the city in its role as lead agency and collaborative applicant, we've got total responsibility for complying with those regulations and also to advance what are the national policy objectives of HUD related to homelessness and the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, which is to end and reduce homelessness in communities across the country. So part of that regulatory compliance requires us to establish and maintain and operate a governing board to act on behalf of that larger body of membership, general membership, using a process that's reviewed at least once every 5 years. And I've been here 3.5 years, and we've not done it. And to the best of my knowledge, it really hadn't been done for the couple of years prior to that. So the thing that we want to obviously avoid is getting in trouble with the Department of Housing and Urban Development with formal sanction, findings, debarment, limiting or withholding or terminating funding, or asking to get money back. So a part of that regulatory compliance brings us to this place where we want to have a little bit of a change in what we're trying to do, which is not really anything radical. Right now, it's a joint city-county advisory committee, 8 members appointed by county commission, 8 members appointed by the city council. I serve as the city's staff liaison. We're actually the only continuum of care in the entire nation where our governance body is solely political appointees. And so what happens is we miss out on hearing from a lot of important stakeholders, including adequate representation from people of color, including adequate voice for people who currently are experiencing homelessness or have prior lived experience of homelessness. And we potentially have conflicts of interest, in particular, as the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee, an ad hoc group within that committee is charged with reviewing and scoring and ranking funding applications for continuum of care and emergency solutions grant dollars every year. So we've had a hard time with its current composition in consistently being able to find non-interested, non-conflicted parties to serve in that extremely vital role. And so what we're again, trying to propose is really not that big a change. The Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee is already performing a lot of the functions that are charged to a local governance body. Approval of regulations as new directives and guidance come down from HUD. And really what we're doing here is just creating 2 separate bodies here. HIAC would continue in it and be formally designated to be our local governance board for continuum of care purposes. And I've proposed the NC 501 Asheville Buncombe Continuum of Care Planning Council, and then to create that wider general membership body, which would be sort of a homelessness alliance, if you will, for which any agency that isn't represented on the advisory committee but feels like they want to have voice on this issue, or any individual or anybody outside the services system that works with folks who are experiencing homelessness, would also have an opportunity to have a more formalized voice in the proceedings of the committee, including input to funding decisions. And I think probably the most significant change that would come about was we would give that general membership group the opportunity to, from their membership, elect 50% of the planning council, at least 2 of which would have to be folks that have lived experience of homelessness or have been at risk of homelessness. Council would still retain some appointment authorities, as would Buncombe County Commission. My colleague Emily Ball and I would each get to appoint sort of specialty sectors. If we needed to do some particular research, we might want to look at getting an academic person involved in such research. But we also want to get to a place where no more than 30% of the membership of the governing body be HUD-funded direct service providers. And the chief responsibilities would be oversight of the continuum of care and ESG funding, and making sure that we maintain compliance so the community is still eligible to get those dollars allocated every year. And then the Homelessness Alliance would have responsibilities for election of 8 members to the Planning Council, and input to and vote on approval of the Planning Council's funding recommendations on continuum of care and emergency solutions grant dollars. We'd have a much wider group of folks from whom we could pull to work on issue-specific task forces to produce formal policy recommendations for both the Planning Council's consideration and then to advance on to various council subcommittees and on to City Council and County Commission, and then to facilitate ongoing community dialogue and engagement on just the larger issue of homelessness within Asheville and Buncombe County. So again, we're not proposing anything radical here. It's more about how we comprise and appoint or / elect membership to that governing body. So with that, I'll open it up to any particular questions from the group. I wanted to keep my comments as brief as possible and just let you know that what we're trying to do is open up opportunities for community participation here, have a wider swath of community input. And the way this is, the proposal is structured is pretty similar to the governance structure and membership structure that I was involved in creating and doing this work in Nashville, Tennessee, longer ago than I want to admit. I'm getting old. So, but I appreciate your time and welcome your questions at this time.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions from the committee?
This is Kim. I have a question. So right now and recently, if a impacted member of the community who is either currently experiencing unsheltered houselessness or recently was willing and able to lend their experience at a decision-making table, there was a path to appointment. How would someone with that experience gain a seat at the table with the new structure?
Yes, so we currently have one person on the committee with lived experience of homelessness. So this is a person who would be, potentially eligible for reappointment. Such individual could be appointed by either City Council or County Commission, or elected from that general membership, that wider continuum of care alliance network that we want to create. It could come through any number of paths. I will say that HUD in the application process this past year placed a great deal of emphasis on including the voices and participation of folks with lived experience of homelessness, not only in reviewing funding applications, but in helping create the evaluation instruments that we used, and really, getting some insight. And I have to say that our particular representative on the current committee with lived experience of homelessness was really vital to the process. And he not only taught me a lot this year, I think I probably, benefited far more, from that interaction and in a sustained and meaningful and really deep way than he did. But boy, we would have been sunk without him this year. So I want to increase opportunities for people with that experience to have voice and vote on these major decisions that our community is going to be faced with.
Thank you, Brian. And for clarity, I'm speaking to the governance board.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, okay. I just wanted to make sure that we, in the move to increase equitable representation, that we were clear that it's in addition to the alliance, also the governance board.
Yeah, absolutely. It could come from City Council, County Commission, myself, or Emily, if we wanted to look for somebody with a particular sort of lived experience of homelessness that we feel like we needed to get voice from. So again, just creating sort of a wider and more diverse, body of potential representation with voice and vote.
Thank you for that.
Any more comments? All right, with no more comments, thank you, Brian and Nikki, for being here. We need to consider moving this forward to full council for adoption. Is there a motion to move this proposal forward onto full council?
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call vote. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
And myself, aye. That'll move forward to full council. Thank you, Brian and Nikki.
Thank you very much for your consideration, and we'll get that in front of you as soon as we possibly can. Thank you so much.
All right. Next on our agenda under new business is a demographics report of all applications and appointments for the year of 2021. I believe Sarah is going to present.
Correct. You'll see linked in your agenda here is the 2021 demographics report. The clerk's office has been compiling this information since 2017. So towards the end there, you'll see some trends. But I just wanted to highlight some things that we saw in the 2021 demographics report. Starting off with membership, just want to note that this is a snapshot of membership right now in December 2021. There has been some resignations, and of course, membership has changed throughout the year. So we're looking at a snapshot of right now. This report accounts for 202 members and 32 boards. The report does not account for task forces or subcommittees. Of those in membership, 22% have identified as Black or African American, and this is 4% more than the previous demographics report for 2020. 3% are Hispanic or Latino, and about 69% are white. Looking at the application side, we have received 212 applications this year, and that is 58 more than the previous year. Of those applying, we are seeing 15% are African American or Black, 5% are Hispanic or Latino, and about 68% are white. Higher than the last go around, 7.5% chose not to answer. So those are just some highlights I wanted to point out. Again, you'll see some trends and some graphs in the report. But I also wanted to note that all of this is compiled manually. Moving forward, the clerk's office, we are looking at revising our application as to what information we are requesting, but then also how we collect and try to automate this kind of reporting so we can see it more often and really look at trends. So, any questions?
All right.
This is Kim. I'll just make a comment that participating during a pandemic virtually may have increased accessibility to meetings at some points, but is not without challenges. And so the fact that folks are still participating and bringing their professional and lived experience to help us navigate these issues is just greatly appreciated.
Okay, thank you. We have no unfinished business to carry over from the previous meeting. So we'll move on to any informal discussion or updates. There's a new process of reviewing applications. Jerry, you want to cover that?
Certainly. The way that we are the clerk's office is providing the information to the boards and commissions council committee, the full council, and to the public is new as of this month. Hopefully you noticed a change in the way it was presented, and now the way you are receiving it, you can search the documents. So if for instance, Councilmember Roney had mentioned someone with environmental experience. If you're looking for a specific skill set or something like that, you can search keywords now throughout the documents, and they should appear for you. So hopefully it makes navigating the plethora of documents that you receive a little bit more useful.
This is Kim. I have to just say thank you so much. When we talked about this a few months back, I was going through the noise ordinance, first time applications for that new board. And there were so many pages, and it was all pictures of applications, so it wasn't searchable. So it took a lot more time on our end, and then hearing from you that it took a lot more time on staff's end and required more printing of paper. I just appreciate the opportunity to look at a new way of doing it, because an end result of this is now it's more accessible for copy and paste, which means it's more accessible for translation services, it's more accessible for low and no vision readers. So I think we've done a great service to our community. It's a huge help to me. It was noticed immediately, and I hope that it was a help to staff as well.
Yes, I would like to add, in addition to the accessibility easement, it saves in staff time and in financial resources as far as we will not be printing. Previously, we had to print every single application, scan it, and save it. So there's a lot of cost savings and time savings there. Thank you.
Brilliant.
All right, Sarah, you're sharing information about annual reports.
Yep, just a quick update. The annual reports for our boards and commissions are due January 31st, so at the end of this month. So we hope to compile that information as well as recommendations into one report, and that will be on your next meeting in February.
Okay, thank you for that. Anybody in the speaker queue for public comment?
We do not have any callers on the line.
All right, any further discussion from the committee or staff? All right, this meeting is adjourned. I'll see you all later.